So, you know, you can cite it against the examiner. He's going to have to look at it. He's not necessarily going to know it. He's not going to be up on it. Not a lot of people are. It takes time for these things to filter down. But he must give a proper reason for the combination. He must say why he's combining the two references, what the rationale is, why you would do that. If he's citing using my BIOS example and a user interface example, and he's smashing together, he says, well, it'd be obvious because, well, hey, he'd want to upload data too. It's really tough to win those arguments, to be honest. To win the argument saying it's not obvious to combine, he'll say, yeah, it is. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. No, it's not. It's like arguing with your brother when you're 6. But you know, you might want to put it in. The best argument is to say, hey, feature is missing. Even if you combine all these references, this feature is not shown. So, LCTA method example. Here's what I'm talking about LCTA. Systematic method of breaking it down to its component parts. Limitation. What is each limitation in your claim? Break it down. You might want to do a claim chart. Claim chart, here's a limitation, a few words of what the actual limitation is. Here's what's cited. I might even paste it in. Citation, is there a citation? So, there should be. Look at the citation. Once you have the limitation, look at what's cited. Text. I like to copy the cited text. If they cite all of column 2, that's a little much. You might then go in and see which part of column 2 and copy that paragraph. But better is I mean, usually they'll cite like a paragraph. Copy the paragraph over. And analysis. Now you can look at it. Now I've got on one side, or right here on top, here's my limitation. Not the whole claim, the limitation. You know, you might want to do this for ones that are obvious. You can breeze past and say, okay, yeah, all right. Even if he doesn't cite it there, he'll cite it somewhere else, or whatever it is. But here's my limitation. Here's my citation. The citation over there, it might have nothing to do with the limitation. I've broken it down to each and every limitation and citation. That's what you need to do. Is that citation on point to that limitation? If it is, move on. You know, don't argue what you can't argue. Make your office action count. You don't want to have your good argument down on your 18th page of your response because you've decided to argue every limitation. Have you know, make your office action all good arguments. Make it look like you know what you're doing. You're serious because you want to be a good patent attorney, and you are. All right. And analysis is citation correct. That is LCTA. Limitation, citation, text, analysis. You cannot argue against it without looking at the text. Well, you can, and you might be right, but it's a much better idea to actually cite the text. What is the limitation? Each and every limitation. What is the citation? What does he cite? What does the text say? I like to put it right in my response. This is now something I came up with all on my own with the magic power of cutting and pasting from a patent. You can cut it, paste it right into your OpenOffice or MS Word document. There it is. Okay, here's claim 6. Here's the citation. Well, sometimes I might do here's the limitation in claim 6. Here's what it's talking about. Here's a quotation from the specification. Here is the actual cut and paste of what you just quoted, examiner. Say office action. Don't make it personal. What the office action quoted. Here is why that does not equal that. And do that over and over. Rinse, wash, repeat. All right, carrying out LCTA method. Yeah, LCTA method. So here is an actual example. I'm going back to that spherical encasement with a hollow interior. Citation. Each ball comprises, this is exactly what he wrote in the office action. Each ball comprises a spherical encasement with a hollow interior. See figure 3. That's the whole line. That's why the word "the" is at the end. Each ball comprises a spherical encasement with a hollow interior. The text, well, here's figure 3. I use this example because, hey, it's a picture. Less reading for you at home in the office. Here's what he cited. Figure 3 is not enough to show hollow. Now, I went back here. I read the specification. If it says hollow in the specification, you got a problem. You know, you want to not only win on the office action, you get the patent issued. So if the specification said hollow, I wouldn't have bothered arguing this. But it didn't. It didn't say hollow. But based on that picture there on the slide, do you know that that's hollow? I don't. I don't know that's hollow, that's solid. I can't tell, and the specification in the citation was silent. So I made that argument. So that was one of my arguments in that application. And by the way, this patent again is about to issue. It worked. And the restriction requirement got removed. It worked for all of the claims because I argued the entanglement argument and say, look, each of the dependent claims cites things in the other groups that you're telling me are non-elected anyway. And he called me with minor revisions, claims or whatever, and he's like, that's a pretty good argument. And he let it go. Nice guy. I like that examiner. All right, carry on LCTA and another claim limitation. Here's another example. Limitation, a near-field communication reader below an exit tube. Okay, same technology, same patent application here. So the citation, so again, the reader is below an exit tube. Here's the reader, here's the exit tube here, reader over here. It's got to be below it. So citation, well, the ball selector also comprises a near-field communication reader, antenna 48, which is below an exit tube, ball recovery, box 32, paragraph 67. All right. I'll give it that it is, that I think it's correct that antenna 48 is probably is equivalent to an RFID reader, or hey, maybe it's obvious that if there's an antenna for some other kind, RFID reader would be there. But I found a better argument than arguing, oh, well, prove antenna's RFID reader. Text, there's no recitation of antenna 48 in paragraph 67. Cites paragraph 67 and antenna 48. Now I got to go searching. Okay, he should have done it better. He didn't. Too bad. You know, that's life. That's what happens. We got to make sure that it's novel over the prior art, whether they cite it or not. So I find it myself. So as I've written here, it's not enough. It's not in the office action. You got to really have a patent here. You want to come back and argue, and I've seen this many times. Come back and argue. The office action doesn't cite this. It's not there. Well, now you get a new final rejection. And he does cite it properly. Good job. You know, it's something. It takes you to the next step. If it's all you got, hey, make an argument, maybe it'll work. But if you can make a better argument, like, you know, one that gets you patent, it's a lot better. So I found it actually in paragraph 68. All right, maybe it was a typo. Maybe it's in 68 and 67. But point being, paragraph 68, the direction in which two balls move, the antenna 48, as part of the previous sentence, the antenna 48 is disposed between the rotating discs 45 and 46. The antenna 48 has rectangular coils surrounding the guide duct 47, which describes figure 8. So I look at figure 8. The antenna is not below the exit tube. There's the exit tube along the bottom. You can see the ground designation with the horizontal line with the dashes. And you can see that the antenna is actually a coil around it. So I said, hey, that's not an antenna below the exit tube. Argument number 2. First argument, it's not hollow. Second argument, and there's no real disclosure of hollow. You can't cite this as saying hollow. All right, that's argument number 1. Argument number 2 is, hey, look at this. That's not below the exit tube. So, conclusion of second LCTA example. In this slide, first thing is limitation. The reader or the antenna is below the exit tube. That's the limitation. The reader is below the exit tube. For this purpose, I didn't argue antenna. You might have. Reader is below an exit tube. Citation. We looked further, and so the citation was bogus, as I wrote. I never actually have said that word in my life, but apparently I write it. Now I've said it. But we looked further and we found a proper citation of the antenna. So when we look in the text, it shows an antenna and a coil around the ball, not under the exit tube. Not even sure it was an exit tube. I don't know. I'd have to refresh my recollection. Analysis. The prior art citation does not show reader below exit tube because the reader is actually around the ball path and above the exit tube. So I guess I wrote this, I was looking at it. I guess it was above the exit tube, and maybe it wasn't even around the tube there where it's exiting at all. All right, and you repeat that. Next slide. Repeat LCTA for each and every limitation. Each and every limitation. The rejection under 35 USC 102 and 103 are treated exactly the same in this regard. Look at each and every limitation. Does it cite it properly? Then after that, you can argue whether the 103 combination's proper. But again, finding it's not in it is much better than arguing it's not obvious to combine when it's in both. All right. So if you can find a proper citation for each and every limitation, it happens. Don't argue it. Sometimes you get really good art against your thing. You got to amend. But prove it to yourself. Prove it. Line it up. Do the LCT analysis. Do it for each one. Find out, this is this is that. If not, you're throwing away a good argument. Make sure each and every limitation is really cited in the prior art. And then if it is, you got to amend the claims. You know, again, it happens sometimes. And you can add more limitations. You can take a limitation of dependent claim. For example, limitations are all found in the independent. Well, I'll move something in the dependent in the independent and argue it because the examiner fudged on that. I found that's common as well. They might give you a very good rejection on the independent claim. The dependent claim, they go and cite If nothing, you know. Look at figure 5 for the neutral wire, if you remember that example from the beginning. So, you know, you might just add that in and say, hey, it's not there. You can take the limitation, you can add a limitation for specification, and, you know, narrow your claims or change your claims as long as it's in your specification. Keep your high level and LCT notes in order, because now we're on to the next step, the examiner interview. So, examiner interview head slide, and we're going to pause here for code 2.
Please take a moment to write down lawline.com's second verification code. Lawline.com's second verification code is the word trick, all in lowercase, T-R-I-C-K, trick. Please take a moment to write down lawline.com's second verification code. Lawline.com's second verification code is the word trick, all in lowercase, T-R-I-C-K, trick.
Okay, so we're at the examiner interview. You can go on to the next slide if you haven't already, which is titled Examiner Interview. It starts with etiquette and good manners are critical. It gets you much further. It really does. When you talk to the examiner, I mean, if you can personalize it, you can talk to them as a friend. And, you know, one examiner, I talked about how she'd drop her kids off that morning, that type of thing. You know, but be sincere about it. You know, be sincere and talk to them like a person. Don't get on the phone all angry. They're not going to help you. Statistics show that there's shorter prosecution, greater allowances when an interview is conducted. I once saw statistics on the Patently O blog. I couldn't find them to cite them in this presentation, but I do remember seeing them. And in those, as I said before, you can answer the question, in-person is best, telephonic is second best. And, you know, I'm actually curious, to the person that questioned, what can I do? The examiner won't get off this one piece of prior art. Did you try an examiner interview? And, you know, feel free to send me a follow-up, because I'm curious to interact with you and find out what did you do and what didn't you do, and maybe we can move further. Often it's easiest to explain and have a give and take when it's oral. You put it on paper, it's just kind of written there, whereas if you're having a conversation with someone, you can say something and say, wait, did you mean this? And then you go back and forth with them and say, no, 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 I didn't mean that, I meant exactly this. And you get back and forth and you clarify, and that can work much better. You know, I think it's logical, it makes sense. When you're talking to someone, when you're able to converse with them, you're going to be able to get more across than just writing alone. Of course you're using writing, you have to respond on paper. That's there's actually a rule that you have to respond to an office action on paper to create a written record if there's a rejection. But this supplements it. More than just visual, it's also auditory for the examiner and so forth. You don't shake his hand, hey, do even more. And you can also, not only that, it works the other way. Maybe you don't really get the examiner's rejecting. You don't get why he's saying it. So now that I've talked to him, it's like, oh, that's why you're rejecting it. And he explains it to you, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I got it. And now you can amend or do whatever it is you need to do. All right, when to have an examiner interview. Having an examiner interview is like voting in Illinois, or like it used to be when it was more corrupt than it is now. I don't know. The Bolshevik guy, whatever, I guess it's still corrupt. But vote early and often. Have an examiner interview early and often. Before the final rejection, an examiner will have more leeway to act. They actually have an hour per application to talk to you. Once they get final rejection, they might tell you they're out of time. Usually I found they're willing to talk to you, but they're not willing to do more searching, more stuff, more whatever. If you can explain it early, once you've explained it, you put it down, then you put it down on paper, and now it's before final, they'll do more searching, they'll do more stuff for you, more cells, whatever, more understanding, and you have a better shot. After final, I'm pretty sure it's part of the rules, they just can't do as much. They're not going to do further searching. And typically what will happen at an examiner interview is they'll say, I got to do a further search. So, okay, I understand, you're right, okay, that is novel. I had one excellent interview where I was on the phone with the client, and I was on the phone with the client, and he was an electrical engineer. You can look at that patent on my website, it's issued too. 2 more of his are on the way, actually. And we had an hour back and forth with the examiner, and we explained it. He explained it from the technical point of view because it's his field. He's got a master's in electrical engineering. I don't. You know, I have a law degree, I have a patent bar, I have an undergrad degree, I have experience. I don't have an electrical engineering, a master's in electrical engineering.